Welcome to Vintage Hollywood Archive. If there is any heroic actor I always love to talk about, it is the Public Enemy prodigy, the man behind the Irish tough guy's character. He is the unmistakable James Cagney, a classic American dream personified. He was his best appearing as a hero, even better as a villain, and then created a new identity as a comic sensation and a marketable dancer. But the side that I love so much is his perfect gentlemanly nature. Make sure to watch the video until the end, and if you are new here, don't forget to join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Vintage Hollywood Archive channel. Did I hear you say that he was a perfect gentleman? Yes, he was, and an admirable one indeed. James Cagney is still one of the most celebrated American movie performers. Hollywood's Golden Age fans were thrilled with his gangster expos. To a great extent, he personified the classic racketeer that anyone can think of in the movies. Cagney was a near-perfect actor, became famous with his Hollywood stints, and retired to his beloved interests in farming. I would say he went to Hollywood to act and make money, and aged with his farm career and family, the two things he cherished so much. Described as a natural artist with those stunning displays from the typical mobster street talk to his machine gun delivery. He sure understood what it is to be a ruffian in a typical American society of his era, an act he perfectly exhibited, mostly with his closely fitted six-button suits fastened. As a man of many talents, he also softened his hardness when he appeared as Funny Bottom in Reinhardt and Dieterle's A Midsummer Night's Dream, where he did not just show another side of himself, but effectively established his acting diversity. After an outstanding show as Lon Chaney in Man of a Thousand Faces and taking home an Academy Award from Yankee Doodle Dandy, a role he did again in 1955's The Seven Little Foys, James no doubt established his multi-talented character. Nevertheless, his iconic image was prominent as the Hollywood tough guy. Very remarkable about James is that despite his widely famous on-screen bad boy label, he chose to live a quiet life in the rural area after leaving the movie scene, and was said to have devoted most of his time to his ranch on Martha's Vineyard in Dutchess County, New York. He was like your favorite country boy who never forgot his roots after exploring the universe of Hollywood dreamland. More impressive is that he spent all his years and most of his time with his lovely wife, Frances Vernon, Billy, even as he retired to his farm. They remained in their matrimonial bliss from 1922, which marked the beginning, to his regrettable death in 1986. More so, his adorable Frances remained on the couple's farmstead until the age of 95, when she answered her heavenly call to glory. The duo had met in the 1920 New York musical Pitter Patter, where Frances was appearing as a chorus girl while he was performing. It was more a perfect match between Billy, who was a well-groomed farm girl from Iowa and at the time an aspiring artist, and Cagney, who called himself a regular country boy, not the kind of city kid you would imagine. It seemed after a fruitful career exploit, James became scarce in Hollywood because those who tried to reach him for an interview-related engagement said it was not easy. Funny enough, he was in the class of men who preferred to do things their way. Stories emerged recently of how he preferred driving in his car on long-distance journeys to traveling by flight. When this celebrated stage and movie superstar was asked why he loved to drive cross-country, then fly on planes, he said it allows him to take a good look at the country, a luxury that those traveling on an airplane do not have. Quite interesting, I must say. In 1931, James Cagney announced his boisterous career identity as a tough, bragging movie goon in Wellman's The Public Enemy, and remained on top of his game throughout his long-term career. Watching him even in monocolor, as his red hair flickers through the sky like sulfur on a match, you sure would miss for a second his characteristic display of those little details, such as a flash of a grin, a wink, or a hardly noticeable frown. This instant stardom 1 year after launching his career and appearing in what I call 4 predatory films. Cagney moved on to become a symbolic sagacity by helping to create a patriotic feeling during the wars, and was subsequently an Oscar nominee for his subtle depiction of a hard-hitting chap in Angels with Dirty Faces. Cagney, who groomed himself in a guerrilla character on the streets of New York, perfectly infused his youthful experience to create a perfect rebellious movie experience for fans. Appearing as Tom Powers, Cagney was decadently compelling in the innovative criminal tale of the rise and fall of a fearless kid from the shantytown that shoots his way to the top of the criminal world. I once read about Cagney having a personal acting rule which the writers described as to look the other person straight in the eyes before reading out your lines, but you have to mean them though. In Public Enemy, the personalities conversed without lines. It's unique about him. Interestingly, about 50 years after an all-encompassing career journey and still managing a deteriorating health, he displayed for Milos Forman an impressive performance as New York's police chief Rhinelander Waldo in the movie adaptation of E.L. Doctorow's Ragtime. It was obvious he may have temporarily retired at the time. He was not tired. In the opinion of Otis Ferguson, who honored Cagney through his publication, it is hard to say what the impression of hardline American character would have been without Cagney. For Orson Welles, James Cagney may have been the greatest performer that appeared on camera. While Will Rogers agrees that watching Cagney's performance is more like watching a bunch of firecrackers going off simultaneously, the words of wise men that had a feel of James Cagney's character. His powerful influence on society made President Ronald Reagan, who gave him a Freedom Award medal 2 years before his death, to be among the first mourners when the news of his death came in 1986. James Cagney was active in over 90 movies in his highly productive career, but those bad boy movies of the 1930s up to the 1940s remained evergreen in the memory of his movie lovers. There was indeed an air of applause when the American Film Institute in 1974 bestowed on him a Life Achievement Award. Formerly known as James Francis Cagney, born in 1899 in New York City, he had the same name as his Irish descendant father, who was once a bartender and unskillful boxer, and his mother, Carolyn Elizabeth. Cagney, the second in line of 7 kids, was not attractive at birth because he was sickening, just like 2 of his siblings who died within 2 months of birth. So, his mother was jittery that he may die before baptism. Cagney said that his poor health at birth was caused by poverty. Growing up as a Catholic faithful, James Cagney was a confirmed member of St. Francis de Sales Catholic Church in Manhattan, where a Requiem Mass was similarly held after his death. James had toured academically at Stuyvesant High School in New York City and Columbia College, where he wanted to study art, but his father's 1918 flu pandemic death circumstances led to him dropping out. At this point in his life as a teenager, things became so tough for the family. He took up a lot of menial jobs, including serving as a copy boy for the New York Sun, book custodian in the public library, and night doorkeeper, earning and giving his income to his mother, who was running the family. He was at his duty post at the New York Public Library when he met Florence James, who was said to have assisted him getting into acting. He was a known street-fighting crusader, defending injustice and unknowingly grooming himself for a career that would make him a legend. After a small success in amateur boxing, he was advised to go professional with it, but his mother would not agree to that. But he was further saddened when he lost his mother, despite working so hard, though all the childhood intricacies did not stop him from moving ahead. Cagney later thanked his mother for not allowing any of his siblings, unlike many of his childhood friends, to be involved in criminal activities. On the contrary, he utilized how to use the first street knowledge and others positively and applied all he had learned streetwise to becoming famous. He began his performance as a tap dancer, became so good at it, and earned the nickname Cellar Door Cagney for his unique dancing style. During a visit to an aunt in Brooklyn, Cagney climbed over a fence to watch an ongoing Vitagraph studio production because he started thinking of acting. His earliest performance was when he replaced Harry, his brother, who was ill, in Florence James's directed production. Though his unlimited talent was rather confined to life as a hooligan typecast that saw him through more than 25 years after, it seems no one could have done better than Cagney at the time. Navigating from the rotten characters of Life in the Hood, seen in the raw and ruthless ambition of Tom Powers, to the psychotic complications of Cody Jarrett in White Heat. When he appeared as Gimp Snyder from Charles Vidor's Love Me or Leave Me, James Cagney exploited all the vigor and magnetism of his long-standing gangster roles to create the depressed image of a man who admires and esteems a woman. His interest was Doris Day's Ruth Edding, whose logic of decorum he is unable to understand. By his act, Cagney may have given a decent melodrama an almost tragic dimension, as Snyder tries to change, but is eventually driven crazy by his protectiveness as he fires Cameron Mitchell, his rival piano player. His typical famous machine gun fire feet-like tap dance in his musical made Cagney a spinning dervish whose premium performances in both non-musicals seems well choreographed. Critics believe that his upbringing and his early vaudeville trouping did a lot to position him for his fame. Not like rival male superstars of his kind in Hollywood's golden age, who was somewhat shy about their childhood, Cagney was not afraid of adopting his street life roots throughout his dynamic career. Little wonder why he was able to deliver such a chilling representation of a psychopath as Cody Jarrett. All through the 1930s, he animated a sequence of rebellious atmosphere and fought for his freedom from the studio system. Though he kept an active presence in local politics and was a huge supporter of Franklin Roosevelt's Democrats, he did not go further. Cagney did not join any Communist party, but because he was a noticeable and often outspoken Hollywood liberal, he was often picketed by the right-wing press, who painted him red in that line. Prior to the era of McCarthy, at the beginning of the 1940s, when actors were labeled for their actual or perceived political recklessness, James Cagney and his brother thought it wise to create his brand of patriotism. The project aimed to wash his image with a highly clean depiction of the legendary entertainer as a true blue American, George M. Cohan in Yankee Doodle Dandy of 1942. He dropped all leftovers of his psychotic crime movie personality to give an emotional, delightful, and high-spirited performance that saw him singing and dancing with a charismatic energy. Thereafter was applauded with the prestigious Academy Award for Best Actor. He and his fans, therefore, took the movie as a personal and career vindication. Lifted by that wonderful victory, he had to leave Warner Brothers for the second time for a future deal. Interestingly, those who met and spoke with James Cagney later in life said he honestly was one of those who did not consider much about their celebrity status. Because he appears completely unaffected by his fame, rather was more concerned with his newfound love for his farm and the environment. Cagney seldom talks about his old gangster movies, which he refers to as hoodlum films, suggesting he may have hated the tough guy roles that made him famous. The few movies he seems to be proud of are those of his musicals, which he said he would always want to watch. Even at his age, he still talked appreciatively about his wife, and one can't help but imagine the refreshing feeling it brings to his fans. Cagney was indeed a lover and a good partner to his wife for more than 60 years, Billy, his lifetime partner. When asked about his absence in Los Angeles, he noted that the one reason he would be seen in Los Angeles any time is because of his wife, who as a Midwesterner always preferred to be on the West Coast during the winter, the reason he returned to LA later in life. Life appears easier and less sophisticated for Cagney and his wife, living and working on their farm. There was also a report suggesting that he enjoyed painting the landscape from home and going to local eateries with his wife as part of the sidelines that kept his family going. At their convenience, the couple will invite those they meet inside the city to visit their ranch home. Sometimes the fun-seeking pair unwind by going to horse shows and flea marketplaces, and was said to have contracted off-duty security personnel to prevent hunters from killing their animals. The likes of John Travolta, a big fan of Cagney, never missed visiting him, especially on Father's Day by flying on his aircraft to their home, though Cagney's housekeeper hinted that she advised the pair to stay at the lodge during weekend visits to ensure their privacy. A media report had also stated that Cagney used his time after Hollywood retirement to advance his other passions, which were reported as writing, playing classical guitar, and sailing. At the age of 80, Cagney was reported to have been battling with a few dwindling health conditions like diabetes, strokes, and a heart disorder. But his spirit was still high, as Cagney was said to have spoken about his musical grind. Even though the urge to appear in front of cameras was lacking. Expectedly, James Cagney told his fans that he went into acting and showbiz just to make money, to put bread on the table, as a writer suggested. Thereafter, he was unconcerned about what was happening within the entertainment scene, living his life without any superstar ego or complex. He may have died, but his memory remained evergreen. Incredible as it may seem, but there have been Hollywood stars whose hearts were ruled by one woman. How was Glenn Fort's heart ruled by Rita Hayworth? Watch this video.